Well, hello, folks. It's 2025. It's the second show of the year, which also happens to coincide with the show just before NAMM. So this will be the last show for a couple of weeks because we're going to be heading to Los Angeles, all being willing. Obviously, a lot of bad stuff going on down there, fires and everything. Lots of people being made homeless and lost everything. It's a ghastly situation, and it feels somehow a little unwise to be considering flying in and doing stuff there. But hopefully we'll be able to kind of make things a bit normal and give people a bit of light relief from the misery that some of them are going through. Although I do keep looking on the map to see just how close the hotels I've booked are to the various hotspots and whatnot. So yeah, it's going to be a fluid situation. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. I'm just going to say hello to everybody in the chat. Nice to see all our friends over in the IRC. We've got Tim Dale. Hey, Tim. Wagyu, of course, who does the administration and the moderation. Thanks, Wagyu, as ever. KV5, Tanith, the Nick Howes I saw there, James Glue, nice to see you, Culture of Ghosts, whole bunch of people. So thanks very much for joining us. I'm very much impressed with the numbers, because January can be a bit quiet. In fact, this is a podcast to do with music technology rather than reporting on the internet traffic, weather and LA wildfires. We will be covering stuff to do pre-NAMM because obviously there's going to be rumours, releases, all kinds of stuff going on before that. But before I get on to our guests and everything, I just want to play a little message from our Patreon. We encourage you to join us. It's 2025 and our Patreon keeps getting better thanks to our supporters. Thank you so much. There's ad-free versions of much of what we post on YouTube, Sonic Talk pre-show, Sonic Lab extra videos, the ever-expanding Sonicstate archives, including classics like the top 20 greatest samplers. There's Patreon Discord, a monthly hangout, the excellent members map, impulse responses from classic and unusual reverbs, and a growing collection of patches and samples in decent sampler format, including some great Moog Muse samples. In fact, the music you're listening to now by Paulie Bow was made using our sample sets, so why not consider supporting us and keep us doing what we do? Head over to patreon.com/Sonicstate. Yes, and there we go. So, right, let's get on to some guests. We've got a new one. Well, I thought it wasn't new. I thought perhaps they'd been on in audio. So, welcome everybody, Chris Barker. Hey, Chris,
hello.
How are you?
Hello. I'm very good, yeah. Never been on before, Nick. You must have confused it with when you were on my podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Chris is the host of Forever Studio on the Music Tech Network, as well as running various kind of departments of the massive BandLab organisation. I don't know exactly what you do, but you do organise a great get-together because you're based in Bath as well, and we have the seasonal or quarterly, something like quarterly kind of get-together of all the sort of freelance and people who work for themselves in music tech, and it's a great night out, last time at Christmas being no exception. How are you, Chris? Are you good?
I am. I'm really good, actually. Yeah, a bit busier than usual in January. Actually, we're kind of growing massively on BandLab, and seventh season of the My Forever Studio podcast is coming up. So we're sort of organising guests and stuff for that right now. So for anybody who hasn't heard it, go and check out Nick on the podcast. It's kind of a funny talk about Nick's building his Forever Studio.
It's like the principle, the concept. Maybe you could can you do the elevator pitch for the concept? Because it is a good show, actually.
The elevator pitch is I kind of half ripped off the
Desert Island Discs.
Well, sort of Desert Island Disc meets the Off Menu podcast that James Acaster has, talking about sort of dream restaurant meal. And I just thought, what would be the dream studio? But obviously, to stop people like us gearheads, going on forever, we put in some kind of arbitrary rules, like you can't have bundles, you can't have, you can only have 6 items, and so it gets kind of funny. And it's kind of interesting for when you talk to up-and-coming people, because obviously when you're at the start of your career, there's loads of stuff you want, but it's also equally as interesting when you interview people. We've had Gary Barlow and Deadmau5 and Matthew Herbert and Butch Vig, people that are very successful and probably have all the gear that they ever wanted, but then what you're asking them to do is pick just 6 items. So you get the other end of the scale there with them trying to slim down their behemoth studios. So so that's coming up. So that's in the works, and it's started off okay so far. So we'll see how if it keeps this busy and good. But yeah, exciting stuff.
Yeah, well, excellent. I mean, as we know, I mean, January is usually, I'm right in the zone of kind of my head is full of diaries and logistics and have I got enough batteries? Are the SD cards working? Does all our kit work? Do we need anything else? You know, I'm usually covered by now because, I've only got 2 more ordering days before we leave to go to Heathrow, all being well. We've also got Gaz Williams, who's there in Bristol. Gaz Williams, of course, bass player, music technologist, modular music performer and label owner based in Bristol. How are you, Gaz? You well?
Yeah, really good. Thank you very much. Just getting into the new year and just, it's interesting times, I think, isn't it? I mean, that got me thinking then about the 6.
Yeah, right. That would be you got to get Gaz on. Look at that.
But wow, I mean, that would be that's quite an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I guess it could tie into one of the topics later, couldn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, it could.
Interesting, because it's like now I've got modular, everything is tiny, so like
6 modules.
Yeah.
Okay, can we just have a clarification of the rules here? If you're a modular, can you only have 6 modules, or can you have a small case with some modules in it? I just for future reference.
No bundles. There is an air horn that is sounded on the podcast if you put bundles. The way we get around the modular thing, a lot of people that are into modular might choose. So we allow it if it's kind of like a fixed modular system. Things like Moog modulars or things that are sold sort of full, then that's kind of okay. But if you want individual modules, they're going to be your individual items.
Right. Okay. That's one thing that I found when I was on it. I came up with things that would multi-purpose as much as possible. And there's also actually, from what I recalled, you still doing the thing. If you haven't heard of it, you get it for free.
That was a 1 series only test.
Because I had about 3 of those.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. A lot of yours was video equipment, though, Nick. Which,
Well, I suppose that's fair enough. Yeah, excellent. But yeah, Gaz. So sorry. Yes, you're absolutely right. So what else has been going on? How's the because you've been doing some great modular jams and stuff. Did you manage to get any more done in the Christmas breaks? Or
got some great ones. Haven't put any more out just as yet. This is with a Quasimodal project. That's kind of the sort of acoustic drums and modular kind of setup that I'm really enjoying. So there is going to be I've got a whole backlog of stuff really I want to kind of work on, but I am going to be streaming tonight though, which I would like to mention, and in part I think I've got something which I think in some ways could be called the Antichrist of modular that's going to be on my show tonight. Now what on earth could that be? Tune in.
I think that's known as a tease, is it not? In the trade, Chris. Speaking to a former editor there, so
strong tease there. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
But what on earth could it be? So
anti-modular.
Ruminate over that.
I'm just trying to think. Yeah. Okay.
I could give you a clue.
Okay. Well, so what time are you on? Yeah. Well, what time's the show on then?
I'm gonna be streaming a bit later tonight. It's gonna be a 10 p.m. stream tonight. So I'm gonna UK time. So if anyone is still up and wants to join me, then I would really appreciate that because, I think this is quite funny. Got something quite funny.
Don't give it away. Funny. I know you're dying to. You've just got to hold your nerve. Hold your nerve. Okay. So because you last time you were on, you said that you were doing a later stream just through circumstance. Did you find that 10 p.m. is a better time for yours, or?
It was great. I mean, you do get a lot more of our American friends joining us at that time, which I think is a bit more convenient, perhaps. Yeah. But yeah, it seemed to work really well. And I mean, occasionally I've done some really late ones. I think 4 a.m. I think I did a stream once, which was and that was really good. Got a really good audience. Again, I think probably mostly Americans.
I would imagine, or Australians, I suppose.
Yeah,
might have.
yeah. But yeah. So something I intend to do a lot more this year, though, because I've been very, very sporadic with my live streams, but I do really enjoy them. So it is something I want to pick up. But yeah, but immediate future though, I got Rumbelows gigs coming up, and also, of course, in February, Synth East. I'm going to be performing in that. That's over in Norwich. That's Robin Vincent's third. It's the third one now, so hopefully it's going to continue to be an annual event, and a really friendly, really good event that is. I think, and this. I think all of
yeah, I'd like to try and get to it. I don't know because I've only been back like a couple of weeks off from NAMM, so it's a bit tight.
It would take we'll see how it goes. Time, I think, that it would take to fly to LA to drive to it.
Yeah, it's a long way off, isn't it? It's quite a schlep. It's a 5-6 hour drive at least.
Yeah,
something like that. Probably 5 hours to Norwich. Yeah, Norwich is the place. It's the place that it's only a destination. It's not somewhere you drive through because it's on the edge. It's the far east in UK terms. Yeah, it is nice. Yes,
it's really nice. Yeah. But that's a really good event, though. I mean, now these events because obviously we've got quite a few in Britain now, haven't we? So Machine Rastronica seems to be going from strength to strength, and it's really, really good. So this is all like a few years ago with the kind of pandemic era, we were always a little bit worried about some sort of return to normality. So everything in that way seems pretty good. So yeah, fingers crossed. That's how.
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of, live venues that are more, weekly, that the kind of more single event based stuff, having more of those dotted around rather than so putting efforts into that seems to be the way forward and the way to make it work to a degree. Yeah. I was just backing up a load of our project files, and I noticed all the sort of shows that we did in 2023 and the ones we do in 2024. There's obviously NAMM, there's Superbooth, there's Gearfest, there's Machine Brastronica, there's Synthfest, Knobcon. Crikey, there's another one. There's the pedal synth and pedal expo, which is in March in London. We'll do that as well. So they're starting. That's like 2 hands worth. Not sure. I wasn't losing count.
The Italian show, which I haven't been to, and the Tokyo Modular show. There's another Synthfest, a French Synthfest, isn't there?
That's right. Yeah, there is. I've forgotten what it's called, but I think Tom from Synth Anatomy and Les Sondiers do those as well. So yeah, but yeah, it's good. It feels like it's buoyant in a way, which is bucking the trend. I mean, I know, Chris, because you DJ, and I guess you've probably been right on the sort of front line of seeing venues closing down and require. I mean, I suppose it's different for DJs because DJs are, I don't say less expensive, but less logistically difficult to put on. You don't have to worry about transportation of bands, organising stuff and everything.
I think just the nature of going out has changed, regardless of what you're going to see. I think there's just less people going out, and it's a lot more risky for people to put on nights. And like you say, though, logistics as well. A lot of venues, even for DJs, a lot of venues aren't even set up for them anymore. Like a lot of venues, used to go in and they'd have DJ booths and DJ equipment and a PA, and there's a lot of venues that aren't replacing their DJ equipment, or they've got rid of the DJ booths to make for some kind of modular environment, and they, so you're on a table or whatever. It's changed a lot. I mean, for me, I sort of just local DJ now, so it's a whole different thing. But so it doesn't really affect me. But seeing how people go out and experience nightlife has changed dramatically. Like in terms of not drinking as much, and therefore not, places aren't making as much revenue. And it's difficult. I think something's really going to have to change. I think if we want to sustain any kind of nighttime culture in music. It's hard for when things like mainstream restaurants and mainstream bars like Revolution, which is a huge chain in the UK for American listeners. I guess it'd be the equivalent of like Hard Rock or something like that, wouldn't it? Like big sort of cheesy bar chain. When they can't survive, then you're kind of like, that's where it becomes quite like desperate. Where big famous money, VC money kind of brands, nighttime brands. And
in Glastonbury Festival last year, I was up at the Shangri-La area, and which is like a real party zone, and there were loads and loads of people there, but the bar was empty. There was like maybe one or two people sort of at the bar, and I was thinking, because it does tally, doesn't it, with this? I think the younger generation. Oh gosh, I saw some statistics the other day about just how little they're drinking.
And I mean, it's good. It's not necessarily saying they should drink, but the industry hasn't switched to find an alternative income source apart from people drinking, and unless people are willing to pay 10 quid for a Coke or a bottle of water, we're going to sort of pay like what's happening, pay a fortune for ticket prices to be able to put stuff on. I mean, even local events, I mean, you guys all know this, you do a local event and you look at what you have to charge per person and you just think, wow, that's so much money. Like this, we're not putting on mega superstars here. These are like, people that are big in the local area or enthusiasts, but it's hard to get anything going.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's one. Yeah, absolutely. I sort of didn't mean to steer it in a sort of slightly down tempo.
Oh, sorry.
Nature, but I did ask the question, to be fair, and I'm just curious because I don't go out for different reasons so much because I'm just getting older, so I don't go to many gigs, and there aren't as many. I would go for more.
I think to put a positive spin on it. Sorry, just to put a positive spin on it. I think what will happen is like what you said with the synth events, because it kind of we had an era where it was like Music Messa and NAMM and huge, like the big London music shows and stuff, and now we've got kind of niche boutique events, and I think that'll go back into the nightlife, where maybe the fact that these big brand sort of night venues aren't surviving is because they're too broad, and we'll go back to smaller niche enthusiast
sort of
events
mirroring,
again.
it's kind of mirroring this whole idea of these niche events that we started the conversation.
Exactly, yeah. I think that's the sort of positive slant, is that it'll come back out of those smaller venues.
More DIY culture in a way.
Yeah.
And on that, can I mention then that the next Bleep Club in Bristol will be happening on Monday, the 27th of January, and that is exactly this. It's a fantastic monthly get together of
I missed that.
It's brilliant, and now it's in.
I wanted to go. I'm going to be in the air.
You're going to be in the air, but it's as much about the visuals as it is the audio as well, because visual artists come. We've talked about it before, but yeah, and it's actually free, but with a £5 voluntary donation. So I mean, that's a nice cheap night out. But we're getting some big audiences, people coming along to that. So that's actually going really, really well. So yeah, if you're in the area, then please come along. It's fabulous.
Yes, absolutely. Well, speaking of commercial success or lack of, it's probably time for me to bring in a short message from our sponsors.
Introducing iZotope Cascadia. Intelligent delay without distraction. Add depth and rhythm with Cascadia's spacious musical tape delay, all while carving out space with adaptive unmasking, effortlessly blending echoes, slapbacks and textures into your tracks. Intelligent delay without distraction. Head to iZotope.com today and download a free trial and learn more.
Once again, we thank iZotope for their continued sponsorship. Much appreciated. Now back to the show. Indeed. So, there's things to talk about. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, really. I mean, there is and there isn't, because NAMM is always the pre-NAMM show is always a bit funny, because there are things that you can't talk about, because not that we're necessarily, I mean, I don't sign NDAs all that often, but you kind of enter into these gentleman agreement type things where you feel it would be unfair. If you just made an appointment to see someone at NAMM and they say, oh, we're not announcing it till such and such, you can't really then start blabbing about it before. It would seem unfair. But now we're sort of back in the NAMM area. I suppose there are some interesting it feels like, even though, obviously it's going to be kind of a bit peculiar because of what's been going on with the fires, that will have a certain amount of an effect on the attendance, I'm sure. But it feels like lots of people are back. Fender are back, Behringer are showing. In fact, I got an email from Behringer today, the first official communication I've had, and they said, would you like to come and see us? And it was like, yeah, great, because I was thinking I'll go and they might just escort me off the booth and not let me shoot anything. So I think I've secured that, so that'll be good. And there are Roland are there, because they haven't been there for a little. They missed a couple. Yamaha. It feels like there's going to be maybe a Nord and Korg. There's going to be a bit more hardware stuff. And I think many of those people are going to have new stuff. I can't say what any of it is or in what configuration. I know there have been some rumours in the chat because obviously some of this stuff has already got out. But so I think it feels like it might be a kind of back to a little bit back to how it was. Because while last year felt like it was getting better, it still felt there were quite a few brands missing and people weren't really go for it. Also, there's the Buchla and Friends event, which we went to. This runs on the Saturday and the Sunday. NAMM is only 3 days this year. We're going to go to Buchla and Friends on the Sunday, which will be much more synth focused. So we're looking forward to that. So our whole trip hopefully will bring back a lot of synth stuff, as well as the recording, the DJ, the sound reinforcement. But I know from afar, Chris, what are you sort of sensing? What are you sensing in the ether?
I was just going to ask, actually, because I haven't been to NAMM for a few years now, but did Behringer pull out completely of NAMM then, even their PA and their live sound side, or was it?
No, they were there in the sort of pro audio bit. So they had Midas and mostly Midas, I think, because Midas was their really big product that kind of gestated over COVID and was unfortunately ready just after COVID, where all the higher places weren't really buying massive Midas desks. So they did all of that stuff. And it was nice to see the people that we met at Manchester. I think I saw them there last year, if I remember correctly. I can't remember, but there was no other stuff. There were sort of private meeting rooms and that kind of thing. So it was a bit more of a low key. So yeah. So
it was just sort of their consumer range, sort of like synths and DJ products and music tech stuff that they haven't been showing for a few years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see.
They've got a big booth, they've gone for a big hall A, double or whatever, one of those like Akai and people usually have, sort of a big thing. They're in the main halls. They haven't got in one of the rooms. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting from a film.
And what are your thoughts about, do you think NAMM have had an influence in bringing these people back, or do you think it's their own decision?
Oh, that's a good question. I would guess that NAMM probably have done deals. I mean, we're not pretending, I heard a story, which I don't know how much truth there is in it, but NAMM had been the organisation had been previously sort of gifted an enormous amount of legacy cash from a sort of anonymous benefactor, which saw them through a whole bunch of stuff. And they've sort of run out of that, or it's running out. Right. So now NAMM has to sort of stand on its own 2 feet a lot more. I mean, last year we saw from when we were there, there were less resources for press. It was hard to get network, so there was nowhere to leave your bag. There isn't going to be any of that year. So the infrastructure is kind of reducing, but they're trying to kind of focus on getting the people there.
Because there were rumours.
So I'd imagine there are deals. Yeah,
there were rumours in the past with Music Messa doing similar things, weren't they? With giving certain brands quite amazing deals compared to other brands, and those brands finding out, and that kind of being one of the potential reasons that Music Messa maybe didn't work out. Obviously, that's all rumour mill, but it was just interesting to see if that's maybe why Behringer's come back. But it feels like the right time for them anyway, because they sort of burnt a lot of bridges with media, and it's time to sort of just get back to business really, because people like their products. There's controversy, but they need to do what they do facing the public for a change, I think, rather than just on forums.
I think so too. I suppose is there. I'm curious, because there's the big people. That I think what I will say about NAMM, and this will be, there'll be a post NAMM show where I'll be able to affirm this or not. There was a lot less smaller kind of independent synth manufacturers and smaller independent manufacturers. I think they probably do deals for a lot of people, but we were hearing all these sort of ridiculous stories, because the problem is the whole convention centre mechanism is still geared around, car shows and where there's industries where there's a ton of money in them. So if you want a table or a chair, you have to hire one for $300 for the weekend, and it's this kind of ridiculous largesse. And so people are sort of smuggling in IKEA chairs for 20 quid and then leaving them behind because so you get to this sort of scenario. So I'm hoping they will be able to maybe adjust with that, and maybe that's a bit of that's going on. So maybe it's becoming a little less expensive. I couldn't tell you. I mean, I know it's costing us a lot of money to go, but it always does. I mean, it just is expensive to I
guess it's the nature of our industry, isn't it? It's strange because you've got such huge multi-million-pound companies in the same space as people doing things out of their garage, and they can be making as important products to making music and that people are passionate about. And it's strange because we sort of think we sort of think of them all at the same. Like I think of a new Roland little product as it's just another mini sampler like this guy who's made one in his garage or whatever the product might be. But then when you go to these shows, you realise the actual difference in the scale, and you realise where they're not making money on these products that we like. They're making money on guitar tuners and straps, or like the kind of the mass churn products. That's what and actually these small kind of cool synths and stuff aren't really the front loaded things. Not that they're not important to the company, but it's absolutely the reason they've got the big stand is because they sell tens of thousands of, they used to, like tuners or things like that. And
exactly. Yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, I'm looking forward. You guys, you've been a couple of times, haven't you? Was it once or twice now or more? Twice. Yeah. It's a sort of, would you feel, I mean, if you were given the opportunity, would you go now if there was, if it was,
I'd just go offered? for the socializing and the parties. It's a funny one, isn't it? I mean, one thing that we've done over the years is speculate beforehand about, trends and, what may we see. I mean, I think in like say if we went back 10 years or so, pre-Super Booth time, there was always a lot more action in the kind of synth area, although arguably there's a lot more stuff that comes out these days. So I was just wondering then about what new if there would be like a trend in the new stuff and what that may kind of be towards. And it got me thinking then about so if live music is in decline and more people are sort of maybe are we going to see more things that are to do with making music at home, making music for pleasure, as opposed to seeing things more like stage keyboards and the like. I mean, I'm sure there'll be plenty of that, but I was just wondering in terms of trends. I remember after we saw a bunch of manufacturers moving into the kind of streaming area. Rode have done that very successfully. Boss have got their kind of streaming kind of kit. Yamaha have moved into that area too. Are we going to see more of that? More kind of the kind of Blackmagic ATEM type boxes? Are there going to be more of those kind of things with more music kind of? I
don't know. Sorry, go, Chris.
I was going to say, I think what you said about, even though I think less the live music thing is changing, but I think it's becoming increasingly important for artists to make money. So I think there'll still be, I think the live thing will just change into stuff that's a lot easier to travel with, to put in on planes, things that do a lot of jobs in a small box. I think that's where we'll see a lot of trends. I mean, we had that. I remember this is a long time ago when I used to go, but with PAs that you could fold up, and they're kind of like busker PAs now, but they became really important for a lot of people. And I think we'll have that with using new tech to be able to do digital mixing and things that fit in an overhead on a plane for people touring, especially sort of hybrid DJ electronic setups, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, interesting.
Or mixers that you can fit underneath your cabin seat because you can't get it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I suspect it's going to be more about software. I think software is having a bit of a renaissance now, particularly as manufacturing is becoming much more complicated and much harder to sort of move parts around, and uncertainty with, import-export issues and all of that stuff. I think we're going to see a lot more interesting. I've said this before, actually. I think I said it during COVID that we'd see a lot more innovation in software. And I suppose that AI came out of that a little bit. I didn't really see that one coming so much, but there still are services that we utilize and things like we're using now. This platform I've used for ages, but there are much simpler ways to do it than the way that I chose to do it, or I still do it, but then they don't do some of the things that I want them to do. So I think we'll start seeing a lot more. And last year we definitely saw a lot more software, and I think people were kind of it's convenience. We are becoming more and more convenience based, and convenience is not literally schlepping stuff in vans and driving it across hundreds of miles. It just doesn't that is inconvenient. Whereas sitting down, in my front room that I've put some lights up and doing a stream and having the sound go there and streaming out to people is much more convenient for everybody involved. I mean, it's not the same thing, I admit, but, I think we will probably see more of that, and we do see more of that. Unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. Let's go on to maybe a topic, just because I've actually got something fixed here. Let me drop this one in. And this may link up to a sort of AI idea, because I think this sort of ties in with the general theme I was talking about. So...
Hello, this is Pen.
Oh, that's not what I meant to do. I'll press it again, won't I? Sorry about that.
Hello.
Wrong button.
This is Pendle from Soundust, and I'd like to tell you a little story about the new thing.
So I will paraphrase. The sound feed Dust Bad Pianos. It's free, 700 megs worth of samples, and it's sort of wonky and slightly broken piano, which I think ties in my mind, to things that aren't perfect, aren't maybe AI generated, are a bit more based on uniqueness and humanity and whatnot. I think maybe we're going a bit early with this, but I think people will start to value that a lot more. But what he's done is rather cleverly gives away the samples and then sells like 60 or 70 patches that then process and synthesize those samples afterwards. And I thought it was a really interesting model. I mean, this does incorporate a lot of things from my intro, but Soundust, it's only a $10 thing, so it's light, but I wonder if we'll see more of this stuff. It just seems like quite a good idea. Unfortunately, you do need the full version of Kontakt 6.7.1 up, but that's inevitable, because to get it baked in, you're going to have to pay the licensing fees to do all to get access to that engine. So it's a little bit different. It's an interesting one, though, isn't it? I mean, I know you're involved in a lot of sample stuff with what BandLab do. I mean, that's
on BandLab Sounds we do a lot of this stuff. I think I agree with you about the imperfect thing. I mean, I think that's how the whole Spitfire audio started, was sort of the frustration with some of the perfect sample libraries in terms of orchestras and pianos and such. I find it funny though, because you go so digital to try and get rid of all of the wonk, and now we're putting it all back in, but that's been sort of a cycle I've noticed for years. It's sort of
fix everything, now break it. I preferred it broken.
Yeah. Yeah, but you see it in musical trends on the output as well, with the kind of the crusty lo-fi sort of sounds will come back, and that kind of the wonk in the beats and the non-quantized kind of sort of vibe, and then it goes the other way to this kind of hard EDM kind of thing that we had for a while, like 10 years ago. And it's interesting. It's a cool model though, that kind of idea of sort of setting paywalls as such within software. So you can get the sound, but you just can't tweak the sound beyond a certain level, or, and I think again, that's something that a lot of software companies are having to look at, how they can, because there's so much now and there's so much competition, isn't there? And there's so many great products, so much great free stuff. Excuse me. As soon as I started, by the way, to the listeners, I got a tickly throat, which is just, sod's law. But I think that's another way that software manufacturers are going to have to experiment with this stuff, is how because they can't charge like £300 for a library anymore. Not really, anyway. I think there's so much enthusiast stuff that's really, really interesting. that I think major companies are going to have to look at how they gradually introduce people to sort of new things without constant micro payments as well. It's a challenge.
Yeah, well, it's the sort of freemium model, isn't it? I suppose, Gaz. It's sort of, you know, makes a lot of sense that works. And there's not. I mean, I do like a good piano sample. I know Piano Tech. You know, there's a lot of love
amazing.
for model pianos in the chat, and that has come along a long way with the modelling. But you know, the sort of the piano you've got downstairs that only sounds that way in your house, you know, there's a sort of draw to it, isn't there?
Yeah, it's so this. I mean, just sort of harking back to this sort of the business model idea. This particular one, I think, is quite a good idea, isn't it? It's sort of like where you get the thing, and then it's like £10 to thereabouts to unlock some features, and then I think that appeals more to the musicians, doesn't it, than constant subscriptions, you know, which is something that doesn't really work, you know, might work. Well, I don't think it works.
Well, it
very
requires commitment, doesn't it? I mean, it's like, I don't know if I'm going to need it that much. Do you know what I mean? Exactly. But it's a thing about having, you know, like a cupboard full of tools sort of thing, you know, sort of to bring out as and when, but to be constantly paying for each one of the tools, I think just doesn't really work with the music so much. So possibly a way forward is that, you know, is that thing where you, well, probably more paid upgrades. I think we're probably going to see more of that. I think Cubase, I think, do it quite well in that they do a yearly upgrade now, which is around sort of £60 or so. And you do get, I mean, especially in the last Cubase 14 updates, you know, a real great load of stuff. So, you know, that sort of small, but not micro, but sort of small payment where you get something for your money, I think. And then, and, you know, and this I think is a good way around it. This, because what does he talk about on Pendle? Talks about like you get the piano, but you can't really do very much, and then you pay £10 and it unlocks all of the little modifiers.
Kind of granular, you get like kind of granular access and stuff to some of the samples, don't you?
Yeah.
You get granular access, and you get like effects and delays and reverbs. It sounds quite mad. It sounds, but basically doesn't sound anything like a piano by the end.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see what does Kontakt cost now, because what you
$299 or something, $399, I think it is.
Wow, that's quite a lot. $269, yeah, that's quite a lot of money. I mean, that's the same price as well, what am I saying? Bitwig, not Bitwig, Ableton or Logic or what's Cubase? You know, so that's the only problem. I mean, it's so you're kind of at the vagaries of somebody else's software to be able to access all of that. And stuff.
it's the difficulty is with bundles like this and subscription models as well, is that you're always going to be giving people tools that they'll never touch or sounds that they don't want. And I think that's the Kontakt thing, isn't it? It's worth it if you're going to use the whole library, but it's I don't know.
You might not be using banjos all that much, and
that's what I mean.
You don't get that a la carte,
And I think that's why we've seen a rise in real niche one job bits of hardware as well that don't need updating. Like, I mean, I've just got rid of them all, but I had all of the, you know, the little Korgs and the little Roland stuff, and I loved them. It's just like, this one just does drums, this one just does little blippy noises, and you give them a one job and they don't need a software update, and they're never going to go out of date. And I know it's quite old school, but I think that became really popular because you just learn the one thing as well. So a lot of these mammoth kind of, I mean, we've definitely seen that at BandLab, like the kind of simplicity has attracted loads of people because it's kind of, you know, I think we all can suffer option paralysis, and sometimes when
it's
you just
sort of like low commitment, isn't it? I suppose the idea, you know, you don't want. It's like if I spend this much money, that means I have to spend all my evenings and weekends getting my value from it. Whereas all I actually want to do is once in a while, you know, take it out of the box or flip it on and just mess around. I think that's I mean, we're all commitment-phobes anyway, so subscription just seems like a very bad idea for non-essential stuff, because it means that we suddenly think, oh, I have to make it valuable to myself, and then that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's challenging with subscriptions for sure.
For sure. There's a lot of people in the chat are kind of, yes, I concur. I think lots of people. Steve Elbow says he prefers the decent sampler model. That's the one that we actually use because it's free. It's a bit fiddly to make, and it doesn't have a lot of features. I mean, what they should do is charge for the authoring of that. I would pay for a version that enabled me to author more features into the stuff I can then give away. There are ways to do that. I think Steinberg Hallion has a free player. Yeah, I should look at that, but it's just path of least resistance. At the moment, mine is like, I make stuff in Sample Robot. It's very easy. I can import it without too much fiddling around, but making sample libraries is actually quite fiddly, and there's quite a lot of hands-on and loop. That's, I want the paperclip to do my loops for me, please, effectively. So the AI can do the looping, because that is the worst part of any kind of gig. So for me, I don't like doing any of that stuff.
That's what people want from an AI, isn't it? That's what people want from AI, is that kind of to do the annoying things.
File management.
And, like I think
exactly
that kind of co-pilot, kind of co-producer, assistant idea of AI. That's certainly something we're trying to do at BandLab.
Exactly. Kind of can you just make all the channel strips, organise them in a way that makes sense to me, please, rather than have to repatch everything, copy all the stuff. Yeah, exactly. All of that kind of thing. I think that's very true, but I don't think the industry is kind of ready to realise that we just want some help. We don't want the party tricks. The party tricks get the headlines, but they cost the most money to produce, and nobody's making any money out of that stuff. All right, I'm going to just drop another ad in at this point from our friends, so stay tuned. We'll be back in a minute.
Know right away when it's good for me, because it makes me write something.
Complete 15, a do-it-all production bundle for endless sonic inspiration.
I did not know it could do that.
You have your low sounds, you have your mid sounds, you have your high sounds.
Create any sound imaginable.
All together, sounds nice and big.
Whatever sound your music needs, make it with Complete 15. Yeah, once again, we thank Native Instruments for sponsoring the show. I should add, I only added the voiceover to that. I didn't do any of the other parts. just in case anyone's wondering that suddenly my video editing chops had got absolutely amazing. I'm afraid it wasn't. It was somebody else. But okay, let's have a look, see what else we've got. Oh, wait a minute. I'm looking for that one. We did the NAMM thoughts. Oh, this is, well, I suppose we can't avoid the elephant in the room. I think, the LA fires obviously have been just so shocking in so many ways. And in ways, it's sort of, they've crept up because we've seen them before when we go. We sort of go and we can see the hills, and it's been a sort of lower key. This year has just been this kind of perfect storm of weather and preparedness and that has left. It's kind of like apocalyptic in many ways for a lot of people, and has resulted in a lot of things. I think we know several people who've had to abandon their studios. Charlie Clouser, I sent him an invite for last week's show, and he said, there's a helicopter over my house at the moment. We've been told to leave. I haven't heard from him. I hope everything's all right. I don't know. There was Bob Clearmountain's lost everything, the house, the studio, all burnt down. I mean, some of these people are fine, obviously, because he's got loads of royalty. I mean, I'm not making light of it, but he said himself in an interview, I don't need any help rebuilding my life. It makes you reevaluate and all of those things. But I suppose it ties in with a lot of stuff. It kind of makes us sort of see what's the important things and how we sort of deal with that. It's just very... it's very disturbing in a lot of ways, and I wonder if it brings up a lot of questions, I think, for me. And one is, in the same way that during COVID, last time we went to Santa Monica High Street was very thriving. The time before last, it was really thriving, and there were lots of businesses, and everything was kind of excited. But post-COVID, because everybody started working remotely. They didn't need to be in the area. So there's all of those nice restaurants and things. They just went. And I wonder if we're going to start to see a similar thing. I'm not just LA, but exodus from places where there are risky things that might happen. And all these studios are going to move out, and we're going to see another acceleration of remote working and all that kind of stuff. I suppose, you know, we do that because this show is remote, even though Chris is in Bath. I'd have to tidy up for him to come in here and set up a different studio. This just makes it convenient. But as much as I love you, Chris, I'm not prepared to do that, even for you.
Thanks, Nick.
But there are so many facets to this, to what this says. It's almost hard to digest. I mean, I don't know, Gaz. I know you probably know some people. I mean, Tori Letzler, actually, you know, she's okay. She's been putting people up. I don't know, you know, where everybody else, but Tara Bush, you know, they're close. There are people who are kind of, really going through the mill, and they must be thinking, what do we do? What is LA for? I suppose, is it going to have the same reason to be there? I mean, there's lots of big questions to answer, particularly for the creative arts.
Yeah, and you know, it is the scale of the damage really is quite mind-boggling, isn't it? I think. I saw Tara Bush's partner Maff had posted something up about the extent of the amount of destruction is bigger than the size of Bristol, the city I live in, and then that makes
now it's San Francisco,
makes it just unbelievable to sort of think about that. So I mean, obviously, huge concern, and it's really sad, isn't it? And just to think about, I mean. You know, I've seen sort of some real kind of mean posts online of people.
Of course, it's only wealthy people. You know, that's not true at all. It's just there are some.
You know, I'm just wondering about things like archives that have gone up in smoke and things. That,
crikey,
you know, stuff like that, and obviously there's going to be no end of just. You know, I wonder just how many wonderful instruments have been lost. It's just probably. You know, I mean, I know there's lots of ways of looking at this. It's, I mean, there's areas that I was at a few years back that are just completely gone. This place that I went to that was just so amazing. It was, and it's just completely gone. So, yeah, it is a definite taking stock of things. But something that I've noticed, with people talking about what to grab, they've got little time to evacuate. Anthony Marinelli made a video, didn't he? I don't know what the latest is with him, but he was packing all his synths down to have them moved out. So I don't know if there's been an update there. But
I haven't seen anything. No, I haven't seen.
Yeah. So, I mean, things like that just kind of hit home just how much this is affecting people. But it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's really hard to kind of find anything positive to draw from it. But good that NAMM is going on. I suppose it is just to try and carry on, keep on going and keep doing stuff really and try, so the fact NAMM hasn't been cancelled, I thought was very, positive step. I know it's a long way from the...
It's a long way. I mean, and to be fair, I mean, there are cynical, well, it's not cynical, it's to cancel an event like this. Because I guess this is an act of God, effectively. The insurance premiums and the insurance ramifications are very uncertain. So it's the sort of thing that could, to finish off an organisation if it was unable to go. And I know that's not everything, but it's sort of tying it. I wasn't sure because I'm still thinking I don't know what it's going to be like when I go there, I suppose, but I'm prepared to give it a shot and see if we can make it happen. But I think what is interesting is there's going to be a lot of people kind of reevaluating how they work, what they want to do, and whether or not does it make a difference now being in the metropolis where everything's going on, because there's less gigs. I suppose it's easier just to drive across town if you've got a session. I suppose there's going to be a lot of different. I
think it depends where you are in your career. I think it depends where you are in your career, because I think at the start of your career, being in the place where there's stuff going on you can run into those people, you can go to the same bars, you can, knock on people's doors, you, like you say, you can be the person that stands in for somebody when somebody's let down. If you're in the local area, you can get your shot like that, whatever you're doing, whether it be film, TV, or music. The location becomes important to if that's where everything's happening. But I think once you're, sorted in your career and you've got your contacts and you've got your people coming to you for sessions or for mixes or whatever it might be, then being in a particular location is sort of less relevant nowadays. But I think because of Hollywood, I think that's always going to be the factor. So I suppose that's always going to be the draw for, because there's so much work around that. Even that is kind of changing to a degree because of the way there's less movies, people aren't going to the cinema and stuff. I don't know. I think one positive actually is that maybe we've had a kind of a top up of our empathy glands, and I think that's something that the world needs as a whole, particularly after such a sort of conflicted political situation in many countries, including the States and what have you, and obviously all over the world. Maybe empathy will start to kind of have a higher value again, because it sort of seems to have been somewhat the currency of empathy seems to have been somewhat decreased to an all-time low. So maybe that's the positive thing that we can get from it. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I think we sort of have to really have to mention it. And obviously all our thoughts go out to everybody. In fact, I think NAMM have started a fund. They put 50k into it, and there's a place, I think I posted something in the story online where you can donate if you feel the wish to help specifically people involved in the music industry about that. And there are lots of campaigns, GoFundMes, and support that of various people that perhaps you might even know or know somebody that knows. It's popping up all over the place. So obviously do what you can. I'm just trying to think where we could go after that. It feels like let's go to the slightly let's lighten things up a little bit with the Panasonic Do Re Me.
Something exciting just arrived in the mail. I've been waiting to get my hands on one of these for years at this point. A Panasonic Do Re Me from 1977. It's a little synthesizer with a record player built in.
Basically, there was a brief moment in the 70s when Panasonic made a whole bunch of different little synthesizers for kids.
I could just watch the whole of this again because I really enjoyed it. And as soon as I saw it, I'm thinking, God, I want one of those just to have. It's such a nice thing. That was by a guy called David Hillowitz, who coincidentally is the guy behind Decent Sampler. So he actually is the guy who's made it. And he's a great guy and has given a fantastic thing to the community for lots of people. In fact, I know Paulie, a guest on the show, and Robin Vincent, both guests on the show, have put out Decent Sampler instruments in recent weeks. So, and we put them out for our patrons as well. I've got a Muse, and you can do some stuff with them. But anyway, this was just really lovely. The Panasonic Do Re Me. He fixed it up, and you kind of got a load of information how to fix it up. Thought, I reckon I could do that if I found one that didn't work. And there was also an R1088, which rather than a record player has an AM tuner in it. And it's so funny, isn't it? That whole sort of thing. It kind of preempted the idea of all these kind of rehearsing and play along devices that you could plug your iPhone into and rehearse along to, like by 35 years. And the sample itself, it's fairly wonky and it's quite nice. I think he's got two of some of them and just resampled them so that they've got these kind of really slightly off triangle waves, which are lovely. They're almost sort of transistor farfisa sounds, and they do sound rather lovely and obviously fairly easy to loop and really lo-fi. I just thought it was an absolutely charming piece, and I'll probably download it in the hope that it might remind me to keep an eye out for a Panasonic Do Re Me of my very own.
Yeah, if I got delivered a truckload of money, my room would be full of like all of these retro electronic stuff. They're so lovely. And in fact, while that was on, I opened a drawer down here and sort of went, "Oh, do I still have the Speak and Spell?"
Oh, you got a modded one, yeah.
It's modded,
nice.
Modified. Big shout out to my friend Greg Scarth, who was the founding editor of AttackMagazine.com. He's not there anymore. He's doing other stuff, but he's the nerd that managed to make this into Yeah, all modified. And there's actually another one that he did, which has camera MIDI as well.
Wow.
So
MIDI speak.
it triggers.
Can you make
triggers
it curse?
No, you can't. You can't make it. The MIDI triggers, like the kind of vowel fragments of the speech synthesis. Because it's speech synthesis, it doesn't actually. You can't like make it talk. Well, you kind of can make it talk via MIDI, but you'd have to really dig in. But then that's how it works. So yeah, I'd have that Do Re Me machine and on all of them, and they're lovely. I remember I love the boombox ones. Do you remember the old boombox with the keyboard, the Casio one with the keyboard on top as well?
Oh yeah,
there was loads in that era, wasn't there? And it's lovely stuff. And that actual sampler version that he's done of it does sound great, especially when it's like washed in effects. It sounds really nice. Yes,
he did. One of the things he used, what was it? The granny. Micro granny, and I was thinking, that sounds nice. I think, it was a great. I mean, it's a massive sales pitch for things that nobody can afford, or you can get a micro granny, which make lots of things sound good, and the actual product is free. I mean, it's just a brilliant sort of piece, isn't it, Gaz? Lovely.
It was the microcosm, not the micro granny.
Microcosm, right? Okay, beg your pardon.
A few months ago, I managed to find this little beauty, which is.
Yes.
Oh, it's a little Casio.
Is it a VL1 or something?
Tiny. This is the tiniest one, isn't it? It's the VL Tone.
VL Tone.
And I was like, I was really pleased. And it's got this.
Oh, that's piercing. Wow. Hold it back. Ow.
Me and Nick with the in-ear headphones here.
But then there's no headphone out, or there's no line out on it or anything, so that is what all you get. So I've been wondering about whether to, I don't know, but it's immaculate.
To modify it.
Manual and in the case, so I feel a little bit. You
can't.
You could add a little 3.5 jack. That's what these Speak and Spells both have. 3.5 jack out.
About maybe drilling in and putting one in, but it just I don't know. It feels kind of wrong to do it somehow. And
you've got an OPZ, haven't you? Is it larger or smaller than the OPZ?
Well, it's smaller than that, surely. Yeah.
Just.
Gotta stop it. There we go. It's a size comparison.
Oh, it's only just small.
Okay.
Not much.
And yet infinitely better. No. It's
than the OPZ.
Easier to use. I always refer back because me and Gaz did a piece where Gaz came here and we shot a video where he was trying to convince me how, at the time it was astonishing, and two-parter, and I was just getting increasingly annoyed at how obscure it was to use, and it just didn't work for me at all. But nice find though, Gaz. Oh,
I've been looking for something to put this in.
Oh yeah, there you go. You've got
excellent. So you can put it in livery that makes it have somehow more cred or more value. That's interesting.
Well, but I felt a little bit gratified in terms of when everyone was raving about the OPYZ. XY, sorry, XY. Because it is just a posh version of that, I think, more or less, got a lot in common. But yes, these little things. I mean, coming back to that video, though. I mean, when he isolates it and takes the sound in its kind of pure sense, things like that do appeal to me. There's something about that kind of pure, kind of sort of. I wouldn't call it rich, but it's like. But he himself, he looks at it in the video, doesn't he, with an oscilloscope, and the kind of waveform is quite like a soft triangle, isn't it? It's got like a kind of
almost a shark's tooth, almost a shark's tooth, but yeah.
But yeah, it's a nice little video. It's nicely made. I really enjoyed it.
It is. It's kind of reminiscent of that Farfisa transistor organ thing. And there's a load of stuff on Goldfrapp first album, which has got those sort of tones on it, and they're very, very sort of just delightfully soft and you know, just for sort of a certain kind of sound in it. Yeah, it's
When I first saw it, though, I thought it was going to be something like a kind of like some sort of octagon type thing that you play.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. I thought, what? And then no.
Yeah, it was to play along, isn't it? And I was thinking it would be great, wouldn't it, if you could actually do something. But he did notice that the thing that was funny is it's such a rubbish record player that it doesn't have. I guess, do record players have compensation with the arm? Because obviously it got slower. Or no, it got faster as it went from the outside to the inside, which I was trying to figure out what's going on there. I don't really understand. Is that something that better record players compensate for, or is something weird going on that I didn't quite? Yeah, must have had a lot more friction going on. I'm not sure.
I guess if it's pressing down at a certain weight from the outside, it has more impact than when it gets to the middle. So it's sort of freer around the middle.
Could be a lubrication issue. Yeah, or a stronger motor.
Could be, Nick. Could be.
Lubrication issue, yeah. That's not going to be the show title, by the way. I'm trying to avoid doing smutty ones because it makes me feel too much akin with sort of the dreadful 1970s programs that were on over Christmas that I was still sort of shocked at. They were actually still televising, going, my God, can we? So I'm going to try and steer away from that sort of thing. Yeah. Anyway, a lot of fun. Let's see. Well, I suppose I'm probably going to wrap things up a little bit because because NAMM's coming. I've still got a couple of days to get things sorted out. I did have I've set up the 2 kits, going to Heathrow on Monday night, assuming, you know, we can fly. So we will be there, and hopefully everything else will be recovered by the time. So, Gaz, you're going to be streaming later, right?
Yes, so I'm going to be streaming
10 o'clock.
About 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. I'll put out a link beforehand. And yes, so it will be sort of the Antichrist of Eurorack modules.
Okay.
That's a bold claim. So, yeah, okay. A bold claim. We'll just have to wait, won't we? Yeah. Anyway, lovely to have you, guys. Always a pleasure. And Chris, thank you for welcome for your inaugural appearance.
Yeah, I'm happy to be on whenever you want me. I just want to give a little shout out to BandLab Sounds, as we were talking about samples, because it's not a sell, because you can sign up for free and it's all free. But if anybody hasn't gone onto BandLab Sounds, we've got over 150,000 sample packs on there, sounds, all very cool, all from some of the best sample makers in the world and best studios in the world. So please check it out. It's, like I say, it's free. It's not a sell at all. You'll be amazed when you go on there.
and I know, because Chris commissions a lot of these, and when we get these get-togethers happen in our local hostelries, quite often some of the people who are there are the makers of those things, and they kind of get to chat about how they do all of that stuff as well. So
and you'll probably
like a local
know a lot
industry.
Of these people. Yeah. Yes. Well, that's why I do it. There's a lot of people sat in their bedrooms or studios or offices or homes in Bath in the same industry as me and you, Nick. And I just try and round everybody up once in a while to do this, but over a pint and where we're allowed to swear.
Amen to that. Okay, folks. Well, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. If you're at NAMM and you're walking the halls, say hello. I'm sure we'll have time. I'm trying to keep it sort of at a reasonably humane level of work, although, you know, it always is busy.
It's NAMM.
So we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. See you. Well, we won't see you next time. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I guess. The next available Wednesday. Trip. Bye.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you.